Elvis slammed his fist on the recording studio table. The engineers froze. Colonel Parker's face turned white. What Elvis had just discovered about his own career, his own life, would destroy everything he thought he knew about the man he trusted most. The betrayal was so deep, so calculated, that Elvis made me promise something that haunted him until his dying breath. "Never tell them," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Not until I'm gone. Not until it can't hurt me anymore." August 15th, 1977. Graceland Mansion, Memphis, Tennessee, 11:47 p.m. In the dimly lit room, Elvis Presley is hunched over a pile of legal documents, his hands shaking as he reads each page. The smell of stale coffee fills the air, mingled with the heavy scent of pill bottles scattered across the mahogany table. His breathing is labored, not only from poor health, but from the rage building in his chest. On the papers before him are numbers that would make any man's blood run cold. Percentages, contracts, deals made behind his back for decades. His voice, barely a whisper, cuts through the silence. "Jerry, they've been stealing from me since day one. Every show, every record, every movie. I was their puppet, and I never even knew the strings existed." What Elvis discovered that night, according to those closest to him, was a web of deception so intricate it had been draining millions from him for over 20 years. A system designed not to make him rich, but to keep him trapped. The man he called Colonel, the man he trusted with everything, didn't even have legal permission to be in the United States. How does an illegal immigrant from the Netherlands gain control over the biggest star in American history? What secret contracts were signed that bound Elvis tighter than chains? Why was the king of rock, who generated hundreds of millions in revenue, struggling to pay his bills? And at what moment did Elvis realize that his entire career had been an elaborate con? To understand how Elvis Presley became the most exploited superstar in entertainment history, we need to go back in time. Back to March 15, 1955, Sun Records, Memphis. A young truck driver named Elvis Aaron Presley meets a former carnival worker who calls himself Colonel Tom Parker. That handshake would seal a tragic fate. Elvis didn't know it then, but when he looked into that man's eyes, he wasn't seeing a manager. He was seeing the architect of his own destruction. Elvis was born into crushing poverty in Tupelo, Mississippi. His twin brother, Jesse Garon, was stillborn, leaving Elvis to carry the weight of being two sons in the eyes of his mother, Gladys. The Presley family lived on the edge. Vernon, his father, jumped from job to job, sometimes picking cotton for pennies, sometimes hauling lumber. Money was so scarce that young Elvis went to school with holes in his shoes, cardboard stuffed inside to cover the worn soles. This financial desperation was what drove them to Memphis, to a government housing project where Elvis, shy and wearing hand-me-down clothes, discovered the blues and gospel that would change his life. But while Elvis was absorbing the black music white teenagers weren't supposed to listen to, a predator was circling. Tom Andreas van Kuyk was born in the Netherlands in 1909 and entered the US illegally. Reinventing himself as Colonel Tom Parker, he claimed to be from West Virginia. Parker was a classic carnival hustler. He knew how to read people's weaknesses, exploit their dreams, and most importantly, create dependency. Parker studied Elvis for weeks. He knew about Elvis's devotion to his mother and his fear of poverty. Their meeting in 1955 was no accident. Parker played dirty. According to reports, he knew that Elvis's father, Vernon, had served time in prison for forging a check in 1938. Parker used this subtly. He could keep the family's secret safe if they trusted him. But his masterstroke was focusing on Gladys. Parker painted vivid pictures of mansions and eternal security for Elvis's mother. For a young man who had watched his mother work herself to exhaustion, that promise was irresistible. The contract signed in August 1955 looked standard on the surface, 25% to Parker. But in the fine print, the horror was hidden. Parker had exclusive control over all professional decisions. The contract renewed automatically unless Elvis provided written notice exactly 90 days in advance. And most shocking of all, Parker structured the deal so that he, not Elvis, owned the rights to Elvis's image. Parker could license Elvis's face without approval. When RCA Victor bought Elvis's contract from Sun Records for a record-breaking sum, Parker orchestrated everything. He told Elvis that the negotiations were too complicated for him to understand. In reality, Parker arranged side payments from RCA straight into his own pocket, disguised as promotional services. They were legalized kickbacks. Trusting and naive, Elvis signed everything without reading, believing the colonel was securing his future. In truth, he was signing his sentence of servitude. And if you think that's bad, wait until you see how Parker sabotaged Elvis's talent to keep his own criminal secret hidden. Heartbreak Hotel exploded in 1956, and Elvis became the first global rock star. Money was pouring in, but Elvis saw very little of it. Parker structured the finances so that all income passed through accounts he controlled. Elvis received an allowance like a child, having to ask permission to buy cars or houses. But the strangest aspect of Parker's control wasn't just the money, but how he deliberately limited Elvis's career. International offers poured in. The world wanted to see the king. But Parker turned down all tours outside the United States, claiming foreign security was bad or that the venues weren't suitable. The truth was much darker. Parker was an illegal immigrant without a passport. If he left the US with Elvis, he wouldn't be able to return. He would be deported and his fraud exposed. To protect himself, Parker confined the world's biggest star within American borders. Elvis, who dreamed of traveling the world, was trapped by his manager's lack of documents. This sabotage extended to the movies. When Elvis went into the army and returned in 1960, Parker had already mapped out his Hollywood future. Instead of serious dramatic roles, which Elvis desperately wanted and had talent for, Parker forced him into lightweight, formulaic musicals like Blue Hawaii and Girls, Girls, Girls. Why? Because serious films required time, demanding directors, and complex contracts that could expose Parker's irregularities. Cheap, quick films were easy money and total control. Directors offered Elvis incredible roles. He was considered for West Side Story, but Parker refused, saying the money wasn't enough. Elvis grew frustrated, depressed, and ashamed of his own movies, which were ridiculed by critics. While the Beatles were changing the world and traveling the globe, Elvis was stuck on cheap film sets, singing to dogs or on fake boats. Financial exploitation peaked in the 60s with special projects. Parker negotiated merchandising deals where he received direct payments that were never disclosed to Elvis. Later documents showed that in some deals, Parker made more money from Elvis's face than the singer himself. Elvis began to sense something was wrong. He saw other less talented artists earning more and having more freedom. The seed of doubt was planted, but Parker used emotional manipulation and veiled threats about Vernon's past to keep Elvis in line. The 1968 comeback special proved Elvis was still the king, but Parker used that triumph to build the final prison. He signed an exclusivity contract with the International Hotel in Las Vegas. For Parker, Vegas was perfect. A controlled environment, no passports needed, where he could gamble at the casinos, his secret vice, and keep Elvis under constant surveillance. From 1969 until his death, Elvis was subjected to an inhuman marathon, hundreds of shows a year, sometimes 2 per night, for weeks on end. Elvis's body began to fail. To keep up the frantic pace Parker demanded, Elvis increasingly relied on prescription drugs. Parker didn't intervene. On the contrary, a doped-up, exhausted Elvis was one who didn't ask questions about the accounting. Doctors and friends tried to warn, but they were kept away by the Colonel's iron circle. In 1973, the tension exploded. Elvis wanted to accept $1 million offer for a world tour. Parker refused violently. For the first time, Elvis began demanding to see the contracts. What he found, or was leaked, was terrifying. Parker was taking 50% of all Elvis's gross income. The industry standard was 10% to 20%. Parker was skimming half of everything, plus hidden commissions. Elvis confronted Parker backstage at a Vegas show. It was a legendary fight. Elvis screamed that he would fire him. Parker presented a fake multi-million-dollar bill claiming Elvis owed him for breach of contract. The Colonel had manipulated the finances so that Elvis, despite generating billions, was liquidity-strapped. Parker convinced Elvis he would be bankrupt if he fired him. It was during this time, in his final years, that depression took hold. Elvis knew he had been conned. He told close friends he wanted to start over, clean house, fire the Colonel, and make real music again. But he felt humiliated. How could the king of rock have been so naive? The stress of knowing he was being robbed, combined with the workload to pay off Parker's invented debts, accelerated his physical decline. He was running on a golden hamster wheel, generating money for the man who despised him. August 16, 1977. Elvis dies in the Graceland bathroom. He was 42 years old, but his body was destroyed by stress and drugs. While the family mourned and the world grieved, Colonel Tom Parker didn't waste a second. Before the body was even removed from the house, Parker was on the phone negotiating posthumous merchandising deals. He convinced Vernon Presley, the grieving and confused father, to sign new documents giving Parker total control over Elvis's legacy. Parker's greed knew no bounds. In the following months, estate lawyers discovered the shocking truth. Elvis, who generated about $4.3 billion in today's dollars, died with only about $5 million in his account. Parker had drained almost everything. Worse still, the new deals ensured Parker would make more from Elvis dead than alive. It was Priscilla Presley who said, "Enough." As estate executor, she launched a legal battle to break Parker's grip. The investigation revealed massive frauds. The court found that Parker was not an American citizen, that his name was fake, and that his contracts were inadmissible and unethical. In 1981, the estate finally removed Parker and recovered the rights. It was proven that he had siphoned about $100 million from Elvis over the years. The judge ruled that Parker's management was marked by bad faith and illicit transactions. The Colonel lived until 1997, spending Elvis's stolen money on gambling in Las Vegas, never showing remorse. He died at 87, still claiming he made Elvis. But the truth Elvis begged not to be told that night in 1977 finally came out. Elvis was not just a victim of his own vices, he was the victim of one of the biggest scams in pop culture history. He was a sublime artist, trapped by a con man who clipped his wings so he couldn't fly away. Today, Graceland thrives free from the Colonel's shadow, but the question remains, what could Elvis have been if he had been free? If this story shocked you, subscribe to the channel now. In the next video, we'll reveal the autopsy details the family tried to hide for 50 years. You won't want to miss it.